All right, everybody. Okay, thank you for being here. I am so honored. I am so excited that you have all shown up here tonight. I feel so strongly about sharing this information because of my past and because of my own experience. And I am just so honored that you have come here tonight. I know that your time is valuable. And so I just want to thank you so much. You being here, you're part of my recovery. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being a part of my recovery. I also want to thank my colleague, Steph, who's going to be in here tonight, Steph Farnsworth, who is an incredible coach. There she is. Hi, Steph. Thanks for helping out. Steph, by the way, is an incredible coach. And just a little bit of housekeeping tonight. Um, you know, betrayal trauma is very real. It is a very real trauma. And there's a lot of ways that we can potentially be re-triggered, re-traumatized, and that is by telling our story in a place that isn't safe. And so just a little bit of housekeeping tonight. We just want to remind you that if this conversation becomes triggering, becomes overwhelming, it is perfectly okay to walk away, to turn the sound off, walk away. Take care of yourself first. I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and record this and make this available. That if you need to walk out at any time, that you could self care and take care of yourself and come back and watch and get the content. The other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not sharing our story. If you're familiar with my Facebook group, I know that we've got some boundaries. You might know we have boundaries around sharing your story too much in detail about your partner's behavior via written word. It's not a good way to process that trauma. Sometimes we just rehearse it and relive it when we're just writing it. The way to reprocess that trauma and retell it in a way that is safe, in a way that changes it, is with a coach who is betrayal trauma informed, like like Steph is, like myself. So if you don't have a coach or a therapist that's betrayal trauma informed to sit and talk about all the details of what you have experienced and what you have discovered, please do that for yourself. So we just want to remind you not to do that here in the chat tonight. But we do want to get to know you. We want to know where you are. I asked the people as they were streaming in, where are you from? But I'm also going to ask you, where are you from and how long have you been in this committed relationship that you're currently in? I am in Tellico Plains, Tennessee. I've lived all over. I've grew up in Illinois, but I've also lived in Arizona, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, and now Tennessee, and I'm never going to leave. I love it here. And I have been in this relationship over 33 years. My first relationship was to an alcoholic. Um, Married him very, very young, before I was a grown up. Okay, I was still very much a child when I married him. So let me see what I'm saying. 26 years, 19 years, 45 years, Florida, Canada, 12 years, 32 years, married at 18 and 19. Yeah, Amy, right? My therapist pointed out that I didn't have much of a chance to grow up before I got married. 33 years. Wow. Yeah. Linda from Pennsylvania, married 42 years. Yes. So what does that illustrate? That illustrates that these relationships are important to us, as they should be. When we get into a committed relationship, we believe that the relationship comes first. And we put the relationship before other potential romantic partners, before other things, right? And sometimes that gets muddied when you have children and jobs and careers, and maybe even family members who are ill. But we're going to talk about that tonight. So, how do you know if you're in the right place? If you feel, I just want to say this too, whatever you feel, it makes sense. There are no right or wrong feelings on this journey. If you feel exhausted, if you feel like you're floundering, if you feel frustrated, if you feel angry, confused, sad, even sometimes if you have a little bit of hope, you see glimmers of hope and you kind of feel those all at the same time, that's normal. Okay. That is very, very normal. But if you're floundering because maybe your partner is not in recovery, Maybe he hasn't chosen recovery yet, or he's chosen a version of recovery who says, I'm just going to do better. I'm just going to do things differently on my own. Or maybe he's getting help from somebody, and maybe you see that he might be getting better, but your relationship isn't getting better. Can anybody relate to that? If so, tell me in the comments. Do you ever worry that your relationship can survive or be repaired or ever be a safe haven again? Are you getting conflicting messages from your partner, from your friends, from therapists? Well-meaning, well-meaning people, but a lot of conflicting information. Yes, yes, so much. Yes, yeah. It's almost like I've been through this before. Yeah, yeah. I'm angry because your husband's therapist isn't providing guidance. And you're sitting in limbo with a husband that's in recovery, but your relationship isn't. So you could be also confused. So all of those feelings are very, very normal. I went through it. I've seen other women go through it. I've coached over 400 women, one-on-one and in groups, and I have spoken now to over 470 couples in the last year and a half. And it's been a very interesting journey, very educational. Okay, so if those are your feelings, you're in the right place. Um, a little bit of housekeeping too before we get started. I want to make sure that you dedicate this to your time. This is your time. So turn off the notifications on your phone. I'm going to do that too. Close the browser tabs, put the dog out, have somebody else take the kids. This is your time. Okay. And again, this is a hard subject. If you need to self-care, please go ahead and do that. Okay. The other thing is I provided some fill-in-the-blank notes so that you don't have to take notes. And if you've got that, that's great. If you don't have that, Steph, could you pop that in the chat for people so that they can kind of follow along and fill in the blanks? Because what I've done is I made those blanks the most important words that I want you to take away tonight. Okay. So my story is, yeah, I was married to an alcoholic the first time, and there was infidelity there too. Now, in hindsight, I know, right? But there were definitely tips of the iceberg that I saw early in my current relationship. And I, like a lot of other people, said, oh, all guys do this, or all guys struggle with this. Things will change when we get married, or things will change as we settle down, or things will change because he said things are going to change. And I know now that they were yellow flags and red flags that I painted green. Okay. There were things that, of course, in hindsight, 2020, right? And I tried everything. We tried therapy. We tried books. We tried marriage intensives. I would send him articles, right? I would like, here, you need to read this. I tried everything. And I kept having discoveries that, again, that were tips of the iceberg, nothing really, really major, but bad enough to threaten the relationship. And so I tried all these things, but nothing helped. Okay. We kept cycling through the same thing over and over again. Well, I didn't want to lose the relationship. I thought I had two choices. I thought my choice was just stand by your man, stand by your man and just stay and kind of put up with it and hope for the best, or leave him. Just pack your bags, split your finances, go find a job, because I was a stay-at-home mom with a special needs kid, and just start life over again. I thought that those were my only two choices. So when it finally got so bad, because addiction is a progressive disease, and I made discoveries, God wanted me to find things, right? I felt like I didn't have anything left to lose. I felt like this is so bad that being single and divorced has to be better than this. So I felt like I really had nothing left to lose. So talking to a therapist, she said, okay, she wasn't trying to sway me one way or the other. She goes, but until you're ready to move out, you've got to have these boundaries. I said, well, I already have boundaries. I told him, don't do this and don't do that. And she goes, Pam, that's not a boundary. And she started to teach me boundaries. And I felt like I had nothing left to lose. So I went rock solid, rock hard on boundaries. And what I learned was the way that this therapist taught me how to do boundaries were incredibly effective for me, for my empowerment, for my self-care, to reestablish my identity that I lost in betrayal, that I lost in the relationship, right? I'm seeing, yep, all the same here. Yes. I do those things too, Pam. Thank you very much. Thank you. Guess what? They don't work. They do not work. Okay. I tried everything. I tried being soft and kind. I tried being encouraging. I tried being a witch about it. I tried being distant. I tried everything. None of that worked. Okay. But what I found, so I felt all those feelings. I felt crazy. I felt like at the end of my rope. So I had nothing left to lose. So I just did it. I'm like, okay, if my boundaries cause him a problem, I'm not worried about it. But when I did start to finally set boundaries in this way, I regained my voice. I regained who I was. I became bigger than the problem. Started to feel sane. I started to feel like I have integrity. If the world around me doesn't have integrity, I do. I know my values and I know my value. And things started to change. The dynamic, so I started changing, and the dynamic in my household started to change. And I started voicing very specific needs around safety, security. And, my husband, God love him, he always wanted to change. And he just never had the right guidance, the right healthcare, the right help. Okay. So I want to be able to share with you some of these things that I learned along the way in all these years of people coming to me and saying, hey, would you sponsor me? Would you mentor me? When I finally started coming across some of this other material, and I didn't want the same thing to happen to them that happened to me from well-meaning but untrained people. So I went and I got trained. I went to APSATS training. So I am educated in the multidimensional partner trauma model. Very validating, okay? Very validating. And I'm also trained by Carol Sheets in her IRCA model, Early Couples Recovery Empathy model. And of course, I am trained by Dr. Jake Porter in his couple-centered recovery model, which I am a staunch believer in. I am privileged to be the director of couples care and Choose Connection Academy with him. And I get to learn from him. I get to spend time with him and other couples every week. And it's just really impactful, science-based, biology-based, science of attachment. But before you can even get there, you've got to have boundaries. Okay. So boundaries, one of the biggest myths that I had about boundaries is that boundaries will change the other person. Boundaries are for someone else. And you cannot, the simple truth is we cannot make another person choose differently. All we can do is choose differently based on what they choose. Okay. So boundaries aren't for your partners, they're for you. Boundaries, being prepared for boundaries before you actually set them also brings some peace and safety. And using your voice, which has been silenced, bringing back your choice in how you respond versus reacting, it encourages you to take back your autonomy, your authentic empowerment, and your healing. And why does this work? Because we lose safety. The very first stage of any kind of trauma, whether you're a soldier coming back from war, or you've had this kind of trauma, the first thing you lose is internal safety. And boundaries begin to bring you back this internal safety versus perceived safety of what he's doing. The boundaries can help you take back that internal sense of safety. Why is that important? Because when we don't feel safe and we feel that level of threat from our partner, our nervous system goes haywire. Our window of tolerance for anxiety and big feels shuts down very small, right? Crying over spilt milk, crying over the littlest thing. It's part of the trauma. And when that happens, the brain stops talking, the whole brain becomes disintegrated. The left side of the brain stops talking to the right side. The logical part stops talking to the emotional part. Short-term memory stops talking to long-term memory. So getting back that sense of internal safety from betrayal trauma is the beginning of getting mental clarity. Okay. Does that make sense? I'm just looking in the comments here. Let me stop to take a breath here. I want to do this. You can do this. Goodness, I need this. Yes. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. I've been training women, educating women, supporting women on boundaries. I'm kind of the boundaries person for the last 4 or 5 years. And I read everything I can about boundaries. If somebody you know out there writes a book on boundaries, I buy it and I read it. And I try to morph everything that I can into what I prepare and what I give to women in my boundaries course. I've never really come up with an original idea in my entire life. I just have read all the books, so you don't have to. and I specialize in boundaries after betrayal. Okay, I can't promise that boundaries are going to save your relationship, but I can promise that boundaries will save you and your sanity. Okay. And when you have two people and one of them is a very dysfunctional person and has had this regressed emotional limbic system just about all their life, one person needs to be having a full brain online. So that person also isn't working with a fully integrated brain, hasn't been their entire life. They present differently. I wrote a post about this week about, hey, they look like an adult, they walk like an adult, but there's really not an adult in there. You're dealing with somebody who's wearing a mask of an adult. So boundaries help you be the healed grown up in the room. You're already the grown up in the room, I'm sure, but you're compromised by trauma. We need to take back our mental clarity. We need to take back our safety. Does this make sense? I just want to go look. Yes, thank you. Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely not an adult. Well, and they are biologically, right? But because of the trauma, and again, explaining is not excusing, but understanding that this person has had trauma from a childhood state that prevented their limbic system from fully developing. And they've developed some very maladaptive coping mechanisms. But the beautiful thing about that is it's not just like, oh, he's a character, it's a characterological problem. It's something that can be recovered from. I see this every week in Choose Connection Academy. So there are definitely benefits to boundaries, taking back your voice, taking back your sanity, taking back your clarity, taking back your confidence in in what you're saying to somebody. And the way I teach boundaries is a bulletproof. There is not a therapist in the world, not a CSAT, not a coach in the world can criticize the way I teach you to speak a boundary. Okay? Okay. I see there's some questions. Yes, there's going to be a replay. Yeah, you guys are getting it, right? The anxiety is exhausting. Yes. Yes. Somebody who is consistently breaking boundaries. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Let's see if I can do this right. That's me in the picture there. I'm Pam Blizzard. I'm a betrayed spouse. I'm a betrayed spouse in recovery. My husband has had relapses since I became a coach, sadly. But my banked recovery has helped me understand that he relapsed, I did not. His recovery was compromised, but mine was not. Okay. He's back in recovery now. He was further assessed and found out he had a personality disorder, a co-occurring disorder. It actually was good news, and he was happy to find out. Now he knows why he's different, and he's taking some classes, something called ROGBT, and he's thrilled. He's learning incredible skills. Okay. So let me go ahead and start sharing this. So now we're going to actually start talking about these boundaries. All of these boundaries that I'm going to talk about tonight, all 5 of them, I want you to understand this one single caveat. These are boundaries for a successful relationship, but you don't have to adhere to them until you feel comfortable doing so, until you feel safe, until you see him adhering to them. Okay. So your first fill in the blank is I don't have to adhere to these boundaries until I feel safe in the relationship. Okay. And that's another subject to tease out what makes us feel safe in relationship with someone who has betrayed us. What are the things to look for? What are the data points that we need to collect? Because how somebody responds to your boundaries is just one data point. Okay. Okay. So this is the other thing I want to talk to you about. The worst that can happen. One of the reasons we don't set boundaries is something I said that happened to me. I don't want to set a boundary. I'm afraid of losing the relationship. But here's what I want to tell you, ladies. The worst that can happen isn't losing the relationship. Okay. The worst that can happen is I lose myself, my sanity, and my health to this relationship. Living with an addicted person, or maybe he's got a personality disorder at the root of this, living with a person with betraying behaviors. These people have been lying to themselves as a coping mechanism. They have delusional thinking. Living with a person like that will wear you down. And these people don't just go to therapy and get help on their own. They don't just decide, oh, there's something dysfunctional with me. I think maybe I better go get help. Okay. So that's not the worst thing that can happen, losing the relationship. And I'm just going to be honest. I want to be honest with you. I don't sugarcoat anything. Sometimes these relationships fail. I'm just going to tell you, I don't have data. I just have my own perception, and I don't see everything in the world. Everything that I've seen, very few people, very few of these betrayers actually want to leave the relationship and choose the addiction or choose the dysfunction over the relationship. I've done over 470 interviews with men, and I was afraid to do them with couples. I was afraid to do them because I thought if any of these men get snarky with me, I'm not going to handle that very well. But something I learned is every single one of the men, except for one that I spoke to, and I don't know what he was thinking, but every single one of them said, I want to change. I want to be safe. I want to exude safety. I want to help her feel safe. I just don't know how, because we don't talk about this at the lunchroom, and we don't learn about this in freshman health. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm getting ahead of myself. Most sexually addicted men in recovery want to become secure partners, but don't know how. Okay. So we need to know that. So the other thing you need to know is that addiction is cruel, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Do not take, I don't want to scare you, but you already know that living with somebody with this behavior, whether it's an addiction or something else is underlying that looks like addictive, chronic maladaptive behavior, is very cruel. It's cruel to the host. It's cruel to everybody that lives with them. Don't try to manage this yourself. Okay. It's cunning. It is baffling. Addiction finds its way to weave itself back into people's lives. It's powerful. It is incredibly powerful. Karen says, before I realized what was happening, I felt my marriage was literally killing me. Yeah, man, it affects, it's exhausting. It is mentally, spiritually, emotionally exhausting. That affects our physical body. It's physically exhausting. It reduces our immune system. Am I right? Amen, amen. Right. Okay. Boundary number 1, consistent recovery work under the direction of a therapist, trained in sexual addiction, and the full therapeutic disclosure process. Consistent recovery. And you can further define consistent. For me, consistent means if you get as far as you can with one therapist, you don't stop. You pick up with another therapist. Consistent recovery also means some other things that I'm going to get to about me being able to have feedback into the process. So consistent recovery, not starting and then stopping, consistent. The addicted brain isn't capable of prescribing its own treatment. Okay. Addicted people must surrender to the direction of the therapist. There's a lot of stages that people will go through. I don't have first one is I don't have a problem. Second one is, okay, yes, I have a problem because that didn't work, right? Maybe I have a problem, but I'll fix it myself. I'll just read some books, or I'll pray harder, I'll try harder. That doesn't work. Another stage is, yes, I have a problem, but I'm only willing to do this program. I'm only willing to go talk to this kind of a therapist. That's not surrender, okay? People with this problematic, damaging, uh, harmful behavior must surrender to another person's guidance. They are not the smartest people in the room. Boundary number 2, that therapist must be willing to, 1, allow you to come in and provide feedback, and 2, share information with your therapist or your coach or your providers, okay? This is not me saying, because you've all heard you can't control his recovery, or if you try to ask questions, that's you controlling. No, it's not. This whole thing about stay on your side of the street is the most ridiculous thing, because I can't stay on my side of the street because we're in the same car. I can't stay on my own side of the street. We're in the same car and he's got his foot on the gas. Okay. So I do have a right to have a view into my husband's recovery. Not only that, for my safety, but that's my person. If he was having cancer treatment, I'd want to know what that is, right? Will I explain what an FTD is? Full therapeutic disclosure. They must sit with a therapist first, a disinterested party, somebody who's not a high risk. If they go, wow, you're crazy, I'm going to abandon you, right? That's why they can't disclose to us first. A therapist who gains their trust, who is compassionate and says, tell me your history. Tell me everything. And little by little, they disclose all their sexual history, all their deception history, maybe even some abuse history that they've had when they were children, right? They start to unpack that, and it helps get them out of denial. And it helps them see the bigger picture. And they learn how to be honest with another individual, and they get to see that they won't implode if that happens. Okay? Must, absolutely, right? Then you get a cleaned up version without all the triggering detail, or as much detail as you want. You get to decide from what point in time do you want to know all the history? How much detail do you want? Do you want to know locations? Do you want to know names? Do you want to know types, right? That's a whole other webinar for you guys. Okay. How come this isn't going? Okay. Boundary number 3. The addicted person must be working towards a full therapeutic disclosure, first with his therapist, whoops, and then with you. Whoops, sorry about this. Why isn't this clicking? Okay, clearly I have an error on my PowerPoint that worked earlier, but this should say the addicted person must be working towards a full therapeutic disclosure, first with the therapist, then with you. You've got to have your reality. You have to know who you're living with. You have to know what you're forgiving, who you're forgiving. Must they work with a CSAT? We haven't had good success. No, it doesn't have to be. And like my colleague Jake Porter, I've learned very rarely are there anything that is always or never. There are very rarely anything in life that is always or never. So I will not say you must always work with a CSAT. I say shop around. They're probably the most trained on full therapeutic disclosures. Most of those people go for that who are interested in this and are moved to do this work, go and get that training. But shop around. Definitely shop around. There are some old people who are out there working with old training, who never got their training updated, who have some outdated ideas, but shop around. It hurts, but it's necessary. It is. Yes, you're already in pain. It already hurts. So this is important to do. Okay. Honesty is the basis of all intimacy. It is. You cannot have any kind of intimacy with any human being unless that other human being is being honest and real and authentic with you. And where there's been betrayal in the relationship, you've got to have honesty about what happened. You've got to have your reality. You can't have a relationship with somebody who's not being honest. And Dr. Henry Cloud says, as soon as there's any kind of deception, the relationship stops. It means there's no relationship, because this other person has had power over you. They've had all the facts and data, and they've been deciding about how to interact in the relationship. And you're over here without all that information. You deserve to have a full therapeutic disclosure. It is very, very healing. Okay. Hey, Folks, if you've got questions that you want me to answer regarding this, put them in the Q&A down in the bottom. You should see a little box with a question mark. The chat's going by too quickly. So if you have questions, please put them in there, and Steph is going to help me answer those questions when we're done. So honesty is the basis for all intimacy. This is the intimacy pyramid. Maybe some of you have seen this. This is the work of Dr. Dan Drake and the Rab Smiths. And if you look at it, it makes total sense. If the top of our goals, our relationship goals, is intimacy, emotional, spiritual, physical intimacy, you've got to be able to be vulnerable. You have to be able to open up and risk what the other person's going to say, right? When you're vulnerable, when you speak your truth. In order to do that, you have to trust the other person. In order to have trust, you need safety. You need another person who is safe, who isn't going to come back with defensiveness, who isn't going to come back with anger. And below that, you can't have safety without honesty. Lisa says, do you have both therapists present at the FTD? Absolutely. Oh, gosh, yes. It's a team. It's got to be a team effort. The betrayer needs to have somebody there monitoring his nervous system and regulating with him. The full therapeutic disclosure has to happen when all people are well regulated. Because again, if you have a brain that's not fully online and fully integrated, left talking to right, emotion talking to logic, short-term memory, long-term memory, all the different parts, you're going to experience that disclosure in a very disintegrated way. That's not how we process trauma. So you as a betrayed spouse, you need somebody there. It's a coach or a therapist, somebody trained to monitor you, to say, hey, Lisa, you look like are you getting overwhelmed? Do you need to take a break? Let's stop and breathe. Let's stop and ground. Okay. So yeah, it's a addiction. It's a team thing. It's a family disease. So that's why you have to have a full therapeutic disclosure. Without honesty, there is no relationship. Without you knowing what your past is, you don't know what you're healing from. You don't know what you're forgiving. Boundary number 4. Now, these are the 2 most important boundaries, okay? The 4th and the 5th. The relationship must come first. Our relationship is 2 people coming together, creating this new thing. I used to say it's like a baby. We created this baby, but what about the relationship? Pam, you go to your corner. Jeff, you go to your corner. But what about the relationship? No. You've got to do all this individual work, okay? But why are we here in betrayal? Because our partner didn't put the relationship first. Am I right? I'm right. So what does that mean? It means you want to see your partner. And remember, you do not have to adhere to this until you see your partner doing these new behaviors, making these choices over and over again in small and subtle ways, and that also in big ways. Okay. I'm choosing my relationship over my urge to act out. I'm choosing the relationship over pornography. I'm choosing the relationship over my anger. I'm choosing the relationship over my shame. Sometimes it might be I'm choosing the relationship over my sports, golf, football, fantasy football, right? And if we have any golf widows here, one woman told me, my husband used to go out into the garage. He worked on cars. It was a positive thing, right? He was working on cars, but he would go out and isolate in the garage for 6 to 8 hours at a time. That's not healthy relationship. Okay. Choosing the relationship first. And now this is hyperbolic. It doesn't mean, again, always and never, but it does mean that he consistently demonstrates that he can choose the relationship over all of these things that could be a competing or something threatening to the relationship. Sometimes it's choosing the relationship over his family of origin. Okay. That sounds good. Think about what that boundary covers. It covers pornography. It covers sexting with other women. It covers getting in cars, right? If that's one of your boundaries, it covers your boundaries. So all other boundaries in relationship for a successful relationship flow from this boundary. And the second one, the last one is, and let me go back again. The other part about this, the relationship comes first, is because what's good for the relationship is good for me personally. When you have a good, secure relationship and you have that secure home base, you can go out into the world and take risks. You can take risks, more risks in your private therapy or coaching. You can come home to a safe place. Okay? Does this sound good? What's good for the relationship? Whoops. What's good for the relationship is good for me personally. That is what secure functioning relationships believe. That's the new tenet. Okay? Okay. Boundary number 5. Again, we women that are in this betrayal trauma journey will often say, yes, he lied about these things that he did, but it was harder to get over the deception and the withholding of information than the things he was actually lying about. Can anybody relate to that? I can. After being, after having a couple of therapeutic disclosures and my husband with some pretty bad coping mechanisms, pretty bad acting out, I was shocked. I was horrified. I was heartbroken. I was traumatized. And as I did my recovery, the hardest thing was the deception of him withholding himself from me, not showing me what was really underneath all of that behavior, the deception, and also the withholding of the emotions that he was trying to medicate with that behavior. 100%, Lisa says. Yes, Elizabeth. Bev, yes. Renee, hi, good to see you. I see some familiar names in there. I have some of my CCA ladies here, Choose Connection Academy ladies. Thank you for being here. We always tell each other everything, okay? Remember, you don't have to adhere to this until he does. So if you've got some money tucked away, yay you. If you're seeing a divorce lawyer, just to find out what your rights are, you don't have to tell him that. You don't owe him that. That kind of honesty is earned, okay? But going forward, the lying part is the part that feels unforgivable, Venus. Yeah, that's hard. Going forward, when you start to see some of this behavior, you will feel it in your nervous system. If somebody really is in recovery and they're doing the work and they're learning to manage their own self-regulation and they're learning empathy, it is a learned skill. I'm learning it too. You can get to the point where you just tell each other everything. You know what that other also covers? It's not like, okay, I looked at this website or this acting out thing happened. We don't protect each other from feelings. Like my husband used to say, I got this email and I would find this crazy email, porn advertisement or something. I'm like, why did you delete it? Well, I knew you would be upset. I really believed that porn was not his thing. Okay. Just wasn't part of his template. But I'm like, why did you delete it? Because I didn't want to have that conversation. I didn't want you to get upset. I didn't want you to be mad. You know what? Trust me. Tell me everything. Show me that you got that email and let me work with you on what are we going to do? Are we going to delete it? Are we going to try to unsub? What are we going to do? Or an ex-affair partner emailing. Don't just delete it and not tell me because you want to protect me from having feelings. Trust me with feelings. Okay. We trust each other with the truth. We don't protect each other from the truth. Okay. That means I don't protect my husband from my feelings. I don't protect him from my anger, my very righteous anger over what happened. What happened was an injustice. I have a right to feel anger. I don't have a right to rage or terrorize over it or call him names or let, my emotions have me acting out my anger. Okay. But I feel very comfortable going to him and saying, hey, that thing you said earlier, I feel very angry about that. I'm very sad about that. I don't protect him from my feelings. That I trust him, that's his responsibility to take my feelings and regulate his own nervous system and bring his brain online and employ empathy or what other skills that he's learned. So let me tell you what I've learned about boundaries. And when I started doing a lot of coaching one-on-one with women, and boundaries kept coming up. and it kept coming up. And I originally thought boundaries were really only for like stage one, safety and stability. You really only need heavy duty boundaries in the beginning. But what I found is even women who were in stage two, mourning and grieving, or even stage three, reconnecting, they were still struggling with boundaries around other things, just other relationship dynamics. And so I learned, I was wrong, that we need boundaries in every phase of coupleship recovery and beyond. And that's a good thing because boundaries are a good, empowering thing. Can I remind you of the stages? Stage one, safety and stability. Okay. Whether you're a soldier coming back from war, you've been in a major car accident, or you've had betrayal of this kind, you've lost safety and you've lost emotional stability. You've got to have that phase one emotional stability and safety before you can move into the next stage, which is actually looking at what you lost, inventorying it. Mourning and grieving is what it's called. And we need to inventory and mourn and grieve what we lost from the betrayal. Um, and I know mourning, grieving, anybody, no thanks, hard pass, but it is necessary because it's transformational. It takes the past into the present and you go back and forth. It's exhausting. So you need that safety and stability in order to really grieve well. And the third stage is reconnecting, because when you've done the stage of the work of stage one, safety and stability, and stage two, mourning and grieving, you are transformed. You are not the same person anymore. If you do it with your partner, you're not the same couple anymore in a really good way. And so reconnecting in stage three is you reconnect with yourself, with each other, with your children, with your friends, with your community, with your goals, with your purpose. You're reconnecting and revisioning your life because it changes you in a good way. So those are the three stages. Okay. So I found myself repeating the same things about boundaries over and over again. And I said, you know what? I need to record this. I need to make this a course so that I can just have people go watch these videos about boundaries and then come and get coaching so we can do a deeper dive. And I thought, well, I know I had some learning and development experience. I thought, I know how to make a course. But I took a course on making a course. um, and I was challenged to call people to validate my course idea, the course validation calls. I said, I know this is a valid course idea. I don't want to make the calls. But you know what? Other people said, well, I'm doing it. And I went ahead and did it. And boy, am I glad I did. I had women volunteer. I paid them $5 Amazon gift cards. And I called them up and I asked them a bunch of questions about boundaries. And those were beautiful phone calls. And I asked this question, what's the first thing I should teach about boundaries? And I thought it was, what's a boundary? How do you say a boundary? Who, what, when, where, who can you have a boundary with? But do you know what they told me and what I learned? They said, teach me, remind me uh, what I'm protecting with boundaries. Teach me what I'm having boundaries around. And that made so much sense because we lose ourselves. We lose sight of our rights and human rights in relationship, marital rights to honesty, fidelity, right? Putting the relationship first. And so step one of my boundaries course, I moved some things around. I had this later in the course, but step one, refocus on me, owning my reality, clarity on my values, on my thoughts, on my feelings, on my needs, authentic needs, getting really clear about what that is. Because tell me in the comments, is it confusing about what your needs are? Well, you put your boundaries around what you need. What do you need for safety, right? Can't that be so confusing? Amy, yes. Yes. So, Jessica, for you, it's not so much making the boundary, but it's following through with consequences when the boundary is broken. Yeah. I hear you, and you know what? I address that in my course. So I've got two options for you tonight. If any of this has been helpful, I would invite you to please consider spending more time with me doing a little bit deeper dive. So I've got a workshop coming up on the 18th. It's a Thursday. It's at 7 p.m. It's a 2-hour workshop that is on Module 1. It's a subset of Module 1. Refocusing on me, identifying, getting clear on my personal core values, on values, on my thoughts versus feelings, okay, because that's important, and my authentic needs. How to verbalize, how to find and give language to your authentic needs. Okay. And Jennifer, consequences. Guess what? I don't use that word. I use different language in my courses. I don't believe, because you know what the consequences of somebody breaking a boundary are? Our feelings. Those are the natural consequences. I don't give consequences to other people. I'm not their mom. That's parental. That's having power over somebody. That's kind of like, when we tell our kids, if you don't clean your room, the consequence is going to be, right? Um, Boundary consequences are for other people. If boundaries are for you, I'm going to respond to a boundary breaking. I'm not going to give a consequence. I'm going to respond to my need for self-care, because a boundary is a rupture. A boundary is harm to hurt. It's on that spectrum. It might have just hurt me, but it also might have harmed me. Might have harmed my nervous system. Okay. So I don't like to use the word consequences. I like to use the word my boundary response will be how I'm going to respond to my own need for self-care. Okay. And so if you want to, um, if you're interested in taking this boundaries workshop with me, what happens is I send out pre-work, I send out worksheets, and you do the worksheets on your own. And then you come to spend 2 hours with me in a group where we do a deeper dive, and you walk away from that workshop with a very clear, grown up, mature I statement boundary that calls out behavior in a very factual, non judgmental way. Again, in a way that no therapist can criticize. Okay. In a very nonviolent way. In fact, I use nonviolent communication. So, I'm going to put a link in the comments if you want to check it out. It's $159 for this 2-hour workshop. You get the worksheets. It's a subset of my module 1 of my larger course. If you want to spend 4 weeks with me and do an even deeper dive, what I go into the longer course, which, by the way, this workshop is December 18th, 7 p.m., $159. If you think you like that workshop and you spend that time with me and you feel empowered by it, you might want to spend more time with me, do the 4-week course. You can use this $159 towards the 4-week course. And what we do in that 4-week course is we do the Boundaries 101. Who can you have a boundary with? Did you know you can have a boundary with your own therapist? You can have boundaries around your husband's therapist and what he says and what he does, around your husband's sponsor. You can have boundaries with your pastor, with your pastor's wife. Okay, boundaries with everyone. I have had clients come to me and have to set boundaries with their own therapists, and I've coached them through it, and it's worked beautifully because the therapists understand the language. Okay. So boundaries don't change other people, but they do give other people more informed choices on how to access the most vulnerable, intimate parts of you. Boundaries for me are not walls. They are invitations to intimacy. They are roadmaps so that our partners don't have to guess or try to read our minds. We get really, really specific in a way that no therapist can. I can't walk into your house and tell your husband exactly the really specific things that he does that are triggers for you. Okay. I help you develop that language beyond the obvious that they're learning. They have to be sober and not act out. Okay. Oh, the 4-week class. Sure. Here's the 4-week class. Here you go. And so what you get in that 4-week class, and I'm going to give you a discount code. Steph, are you around? Can you pop that discount code in there that I gave you? So what you learn in the 4-week class is the who, what, when, where. Okay. When can I set a boundary? How to set it. We talk about safety. We do a deeper dive into your safety, your self-care, your self-focus. You become bigger than the problem. You get to take up space again, right? Finding your voice. And also I help you prepare your boundaries, responses, and peaceful spaces. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'm just going to tell you that boundaries work is hard. Boundaries at first do not feel good because they are different, they're new. And here's the other thing I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to be really honest with you because I love you all. When you first start to employ boundaries, say I didn't say enforce, you start to feel your feelings. You start to feel your actual feelings from the hurt and the harm that has happened. And I know that may sound scary, but I'm just going to tell you that this is a good thing because those emotions are messengers for us to take action. And this is why we get clarity and this is why we get peace. The clarity comes from feeling the feelings and knowing what they're trying to tell you you need to do around your needs. And the peace comes from knowing that you are taking care of your needs. Okay. And so being able to prepare what I call retreat to sanctuary. How do you prepare your sanctuary? What are the kinds of things you're going to do if you need to employ a boundary? How are you going to take care of yourself? How are you going to get some space? How much space are you going to take? You get to decide. And the beautiful thing is too, is you don't have to follow that plan. You get to decide at the very end if that boundary is actually broken, you want to do something different. Okay, so we talk about that. I also talk about how to communicate boundaries and requests with compassion and empathy. Compassion for yourself first, always. Always for yourself first. We can't have compassion for others unless we have compassion for ourselves and what we've been through. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me get that discount code. Where is it? Hang on with me. Okay.
It's in the chat. It's
Oh,
just
it
up a
is?
few.
Oh,
Up
okay.
a few.
Oh,
I'll put it in again.
thank you, Steph. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without Steph. Okay. And so the other thing that I try to prepare you for is pushback. Expect it. Expect pushback. Nobody likes boundaries. Nobody does. I'm just going to tell you very honestly, I have a 25-year-old son. He's on the spectrum, very intelligent, but I used to be a bit of a helicopter controlling parent. I'm a recovering controlling parent. And sometimes that young man has to set boundaries with me. And I don't like it. I do not like it. But uh, I am so grateful for the work that I do because it helps me go, oh, okay. Maybe I better think about this. And so, yeah, nobody likes having boundaries because you're taking away something that they weren't supposed to have access to in the first place, that they've enjoyed having access to, that they don't deserve, right? That they haven't earned. And so you're going to get pushback. If you get pushback, take it as data that I should have had the boundary. And I give you responses. And again, when I tell you, here's some scripts that you can say, I always say it is more important for you to hear yourself say these words than it is to land with the other person. It's more important for you to hear you stick up for yourself and your brain to hear you saying these boundaries and saying these things back to other people. It could be somebody besides your partner, it could be the pastor's wife or maybe your mom or his mom, right? I'm sorry. Did you say something, Steph?
Sorry, I forgot I wasn't muted.
Okay.
Just talking to myself.
Oh, okay. Well, get better answers that way. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So pushback. I give you some scripts that will help you with your mindset to stay in a place of compassion for yourself and your partner. Okay. While remaining firm in your boundaries. So, a way to respond. Okay. Yes, the 4 week is $629. Okay. And I'm giving you a 20% off code. And you can split that out. You can make a one time payment or you can split that out over two different payments. Okay. And the last step in this breaking out the 5-step success path is enforcing, and I got to change that word because I don't like that word. I got to change the slide. Employ boundaries. Feel comfortable in your space, wherever that is, with clarity and peace. Because authentic safety, authentic peace comes from within. It comes from your own nervous system. That's why these are betrayal trauma informed boundaries that you really don't find in other books about what you need to protect from your betrayal trauma recovery aspect. and how getting safe in your own container is so, so important. When you're living with a person who is either not in recovery or a person who is in early recovery, because it doesn't happen overnight, it can be frustrating. It can be foggy. It can be unclear. And so the best way to continue to employ those boundaries, okay, is to get support, to be in a support group of people who get it. Because if you have one person over here who is constantly breaking boundaries, who is still maybe a little bit delusional thinking, who is still deceiving themselves and not living in reality, you need 7 other people over here reinforce. So you got one person over here that might be gaslighting and saying, "Oh, you don't need that. Why are you saying that? You're controlling." A person over here saying, "That's gaslighting, man. That's not controlling. You do have a right to feel that way. You do have a right to have that boundary. You do have a right to safety. You do have a right to autonomy over your body, right? You need other people over here that are encouraging you, reinforcing that growth mindset and that healing is possible." Oh, I'm right to the top of the hour. Okay, yes, now I'm ready to take some questions. So, first, I'd like to take any questions. Let me see if I can see. Did you guys put them? Oh, okay. Let me bring this over here where I can actually see them. Okay. I'm going to have to stick to the topic tonight because there's first. Okay. Let me see.
Pam,
Yes, ma'am.
while you're looking through those,
Yes. Yes.
um, I will just jump in really quick. If you go through the chat, ladies, there, if you scroll back, there's um the the links for the different things. I tried to title them well, but there's the Clarity and Peace with Boundaries full course. There's with the early bird discount, there's a there's one for that, and then there's the Foundations of Boundaries workshop, the one-time workshop. There seemed to be a little bit of confusion. There's not a 2-week course. There's just the one-time workshop
It's 2
and the
hours.
4-week course.
Right.
And if you take the one-time workshop, then you can use what you paid for that to go toward the 4-week course.
Thank you.
I hope that makes
Yes.
a little more sense.
And so the workshop is December 18th, and the 4-week course starts on Monday, December 29th at 7 p.m., the same time that this webinar started. And I purposely do these webinars on the same time that the course starts because I know you're available, or I'm hoping you're available at Mondays at 7 p.m. Okay, so
one question that I think would be great to answer right now is, are you going to do this again for women who are not going to be able to
this webinar or these?
the course? I
Oh,
believe the course.
yes. I am. There will always be some version of this course. I am working in the background on improving this course, and I've always been adding to it. So I will always be adding to it, making some of it evergreen, making it available, the content available for people who don't necessarily want the coaching, who just want the content. So I will do it again. I don't know when. I don't know. I don't have the dates. I am also working on a few other things. Like I said, I'm director of couples care at Choose Connection Academy. Such a blessing to work there. But I'm also working on a book. And so I have my first draft that I got from the people that I'm working with, my book coach, back. And I have to go through and I make revisions and look at that. So it's going to be about boundaries after betrayal trauma, because you need a different approach and you need more support and you need more mindset about taking yourself back again. Okay, let me see if I can answer some of these questions. Do you think S&on groups are safe for a person in support? So S&on is the 12 step for the betrayed spouses. And sometimes yes, and sometimes no. I think that I went through my recovery at a time when there was nothing else, and I was so grateful. Now, I have been in S-Anon meetings in 3 different states, and I've been to some really, really healthy meetings, and I've been to some dumpster fire meetings, okay? Um, Let me say this about 12-step. 12-step, whether it's SA, SAA, I like SA, my husband likes SA, or S-Anon, the meat and the potatoes is in the literature. It's in reading the material. It's in doing the work inside the books. That doesn't change. That's pretty good. Some people have some problems with some of the wording in the book. I don't throw the baby out with the bath. I can look past that and go, okay, I know what they're saying. I can convert that to something else, betrayal trauma informed. Um, but it's a really good self development program. It's really good to bring the focus back to you, back to your higher power. I am a person of faith, and I had to give stuff over to God. I was trying to control. I'm a controlling person. And take betrayal trauma on top of that and trying to control and get safety. So it was very helpful for me. So the material is wonderful. Groups can be good and they cannot be. So shop around. Okay. Okay. Let me see what else I can do here. We are struggling to find informed therapists to accept insurance. We aren't in the financial position to cash pay any advice. Um, Keep calling around. There are some people who work pro bono or on a sliding scale. There is also litpath.org. I presented with them last June. I'm going to present with them again this June in Nashville. They are an organization that takes donations and provides scholarships for couples. So litpath.org, go there and call around. Just keep calling and say, do you do sliding scale? Do you do pro bono work? There are some people out there that do pro bono work. Can you talk about sobriety versus recovery? Yes. Sobriety is just abstaining from the maladaptive behavior. The maladaptive behavior happens because there's growth needed, there's stunted development, there's stunted limbic system development. And so sobriety is just not doing the bad thing. It's not the growth that happens in recovery. So I hope that helps answer. Okay. How concerning is evidence of my spouse not answering assessments truthfully for the FTD? That's concerning. That's concerning. That's data. That is cold, hard data. Any behavior is always information. What another person does has no meaning or information about me, my worth, who I am, you too, okay? So when somebody breaks a boundary or they're not being truthful in their recovery, it has zero meaning for you and your worth or your value. It is cold, hard information about the mental status of the other person. Some of my support group don't feel the FTD will arrive. Some of my support group, I, I don't, I don't know. um, how serious, how much weight do you want to give some people in your support group? Okay. Are they lay people? Have they had training? I mean, I'm not the smartest bulb in the box, the brightest bulb in the box, but I'm trained. I am trained by APSATs. I'm trained by Carol Sheets. I've had some Stan Tatkin training. I've had some Gottman training. I am trained by Dr. Jake Porter. So I get a little worried when other people are commenting on your FTD will arrive at reality, but only his truth. Yeah, it makes sense. Stacy, I just wouldn't give that too much weight. Okay. They get to have their opinion, but they don't know him. They don't know you. They don't know your therapist. If you're concerned it's not being truthful, he's not being truthful, you need to pay attention to that. This part is hard. Not feeling guilty for allowing my anger to be known. Yeah, I'm allow my anger to be known. But um, is it in your personal core value system to scare other people or and I'm just the story I make up when I hear you say that? Yeah. Anger gets a bad rap in our culture, and we need to make friends with anger. We need to allow people to be angry. It's okay to have anger. This is a situation that is unjust, and it calls for anger. If a betrayed spouse isn't angry, then, you know, that's something to be concerned about. But be known. So I get curious when I hear you say, my anger to be known. What does that look like? Does it look like smashing things? Does it look like yelling and screaming in a way that scares other people? Name calling. What is your personal core value around how you treat other people? And is some of those behaviors overriding your personal core value around that? We all listen, give yourself, if any of you out there listening to this have acted out in rage, I understand. Let's give ourselves grace for that. But when we know better, we can do better. Okay. Lila. So we don't protect him from our anger, but when we do it in a mature way, not raging, and he goes into anger defensiveness to one up your feelings, what boundary do we set after that? You walk away. You walk away. You say, I'm not receiving this. There's lots of different ways to set a boundary, to speak a boundary. One of them is no, right? That's a boundary. One of them is just turning around and walking away. You turn around and walk away. That's an option. That's at one end of the spectrum. And another end of the spectrum is, okay, hear you saying, and then you repeat back to them exactly what they're saying. I hear you saying, I'm not receiving that. I'm exiting this conversation now. And then doing it. Okay. I struggle with in the meantime. Yes, I know. While they find themselves, they're not just finding themselves, they're maturing a part of the development that didn't happen in childhood development. They are growing up. They are learning to find out what their personal core values are. They are learning to manage their nervous system and their window of tolerance. They're learning a lot of new skills. What do you do in the meantime? You take care of yourself. You focus on your self-care. You focus on what does nurture you. Even in the best of relationships, and I have a pretty good relationship with my husband, he can't be my all. And I need other people. I need Steph. I need other people in my life. I need my neighbors. I need my hobbies and my creativity, other things outside of him. And I focus on that. And I just focus on my own growth too. And in the meantime, holding boundaries, I pray for my partner and wishing him well. And, but yet having realistic boundaries and maybe realistic dates set on the calendar about if X doesn't change by Y date, then I'm going to do this other thing. It's hard. That's why having a support group is so important. Because when you have a person over here who's not able to be emotionally intimate, connection, validating you, hearing you, seeing you, knowing you, you need these other people over here that will. You need women in a support group, a betrayal trauma informed support group, where you don't have to explain why you're feeling the way you feel. Really, really encourage you with that. Okay, I need a chorus. I feel so lost. Come hang out with me, Jennifer. Come hang out. Okay, this is a long one. Okay, there's a lot of detail here. Linda, I do have a great coach. Listen, if I would encourage you to um, come take my workshop and let's dive into some of these details that you're giving and let's tease them out, what your needs are in there. What are your real needs and what needs are not being met? By looking at your feelings around what's happening and setting some boundaries for yourself around what you will and will not stay present for and what you will make yourself vulnerable to. Um, if your full disclosure had already happened, do you still suggest a full therapeutic disclosure? We didn't find out about FTD until everything was disclosed. Again, it doesn't have to be. There's not an always or never. Some people have what we call kitchen table disclosures or couch disclosures. The the difference between a full disclosure like that and a full therapeutic disclosure is when done well, a therapeutic disclosure truly is therapeutic because you are getting support from other person from this other person to regulate so that you're hearing the information in a way that your brain can process it. What is betrayal trauma? Betrayal trauma is learning information and getting stuck there, not processing through. And so when there's a therapeutic disclosure, you hear the information and you get to process it through so that you don't have to go reprocess it. A lot of trauma modalities are reprocessing that trauma. So maybe, maybe not. Okay. I wish I could give you a more concrete answer, but sometimes yes and sometimes no. Can I give you an example of a boundary you've set with your spouse? Yes, early in recovery, one of my discoveries and disclosures was acting out in the bathroom. And so I said, when you take your phone into the bathroom, I feel panic, I feel scared, I feel angry, I feel worried, I don't feel safe. Would you consider never taking your phone into the bathroom? Would you consider leaving it out? And he did. Sure. That was really a different way to hear my request. Besides, don't take your phone in the bathroom. Never take your phone in the bathroom, right? When you take your phone in the bathroom, here's how I feel. That's emotional intimacy. That's offering him intimacy. Would you consider? And then if he said yes but did it anyway, okay. If you take your phone into the bathroom, I feel unsafe. And if I feel unsafe, I will not be able to be vulnerable with you. I will not be in relationship with you. I will not be close to you until you make a repair, until you demonstrate that you won't be taking your phone into the bathroom. I hope that's helpful, Jennifer. Okay, I answered the question about Essanon. How do you establish boundaries around Darvo? It's anything less than, well, that's not choosing the relationship first, is it? That's not choosing the relationship first. And saying, when you say, and you have to repeat the words, okay? Because Darvo is us assigning a label, making a judgment. I'm absolutely validating that when you express something and what you feel back, your brain is telling you is Darvo. I'm validating that you feel what's happening, okay? When you say this, I feel frustrated. I feel a little angry. I feel frustrated. We don't have to say to them, hey, when you Darvo, because then you're going to get into an argument and start debating whether it's Darvo or not. But you can't debate uh, him saying, well, I'm not the one that lied. You're the one that lied. That's Darvo. That's denial and then accusing, right? Changing the victim order. So when you say that, I feel unsafe. I feel unseen. I am not able to be vulnerable with you. And then, ladies, don't be vulnerable with them. I know that's the hard part. I know, because they draw us back in. Okay. Let me see what else. If you do the 2-hour and decide to then do the 4-week course, you get the discount off the entire 4-week course. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I will have another discount, but probably won't be 20% because I do 20% for 1 week and then I'll do 15% and the percents go down. Okay. So decide what you want to do there. Okay. My husband and I are separated and run a nonprofit together. I'm confused with what there is left to enforce as far as contact. He sometimes uses the business to get me to interact with him when I've put up a no contact boundary. That's a tough one. And you get to choose. And you get to choose who you show up as in that moment. I have learned, and I think it might have been easier for me because my husband and I started out as friends, buddies, pals before we ever became romantic. And so in our past, when there was a discovery, I was able to step back and go, I care about you. I will, if your appendix starts bursting, I'll call 911. You're a friend. You'll always be my son's father, right? We're always going to have this connection. So I can be friendly with you. but I can't be intimate with you. You're not going to get what's going on in here or in here. You're not going to know what's happening with me emotionally. That's going to be a big mystery to you, but I'm able to step back. And one of the tools that I give you in my boundaries course is boundary circles. Like, right in here in a relationship where we're both putting the relationship first, there's two people right here. And then outside of that, there's a ring, and my son is in that ring. And outside of that ring are my in-laws. Okay. And outside of that ring are my neighbors and other friends, people that I love. And outside of that ring, somewhere is the UPS guy and the postman. So when you show up with him, if you are committed to this nonprofit and you don't want to end your participation there, show up as a friend. I sometimes say also, do we all have that funny cousin or uncle who shows up and people just kind of tolerate them because they're family? You just think about him like a drunk uncle or a cousin, and you have very low expectations and you don't share your inner world with him. That's one way you can do it. Who are you going to be who am I going to be? Am I showing up as your betrayed spouse? Am I showing up as your ex-wife or your soon-to-be ex-wife? No, I'm showing up as somebody who knows you, maybe a distant family member. I don't know if you have kids, right? I can be friendly with you, but I'm not going to be friends. So see that gray area there. Okay, I'm answering questions not from the chat, but from the Q&A because there's a lot there. People keep talking about that's data, but what do we do with that data? You use that data to decide how vulnerable am I going to make myself in this relationship? How much am I going to open up and let another person in? How much? And um, what's my future in this relationship? Am I going to stick it out another 3 months, another 6 months, a year while I get my other act together, get my ducks in a row, right? That's data that you use to make decisions about your life and about who has access to you. Bev, I hope that's helpful. And Bev, I know you always want to choose connection. There are times when it is not safe to choose connection. If my partner is in a headspace or in behaviors that is not able to respond to choose connection, right? I'm not going to choose connection with him. I'm going to go choose connection with my support group. Okay. I think I have new needs. I've done some boundary work and safety plan work and other courses. Good. I think I have new needs that I need boundaries around, and I'm struggling to communicate them. Would the upcoming webinar be helpful in walking me through that? Absolutely. One of the hardest things that I struggled with was how to say it. Like, I've got all these ideas and feelings and this vision of what I want. I can see us talking together and connecting, but how do I put that into words? I absolutely give you scripts that you can pick and choose. Like, there's a lot of ways to say a boundary. Like I said, no is one of them. I'm not receiving that. I'm not taking part in this conversation. But if you want a boundary that really is an intimate invite into intimacy, using what I said, the same formula that I said about the phone. When you do this thing, this is what I feel. Because I value connection, because I value honesty, because I value my sanity, because I value these things, would you consider doing something different? That phrase is so powerful to a person in recovery. That phrase is so powerful to an immature person who never got this information from healthy parents or healthy parenting, or who just for whatever reason doesn't know what different to do. Would you consider doing this thing instead? And if you do, I'll feel wonderful. I'll feel safe. I'll feel connected. But if you don't, I'm not going to feel safe. And so I will not be close to you. I will not be able to be vulnerable with you. So yes, those are just a few ways. Another ways of if you choose to take your phone into the bathroom, I will choose to not be in a relationship with you. Okay. What if he won't do any work? Lisa, that is cold, hard data. They usually don't do any work unless they feel the pain. If they are comfortable, um, and they feel, hey, everything here is secure. Nobody's going to abandon me. I'm secure. I've got a safety net of a relationship. I got a wife. I got a home. I got kids. I got access to everything. Um, I don't have to split my income out. Life is comfy. Then why change? They don't, that's what they think. I know why, but that's what they think. And so if somebody's not going to change, and what if you won't do any work? Let's talk about how that affects you. What did I say before? Living with a person who is not living in reality, who is delusional, trying to force their version of reality on you, lying, deception, disempowering you. Living with a person like that will rob you of your sanity. So that's what if you won't do any work. Your health will degrade. And you got to take that seriously, my friend. You got to take that very seriously, because losing the relationship is not the worst thing that can happen. You losing you, that's the worst that can happen. Some of us are already, if we're in that space, you're already losing you, and you need to get yourself back again. How do you stop looking at his lazy recovery? Um, that's a big question. I have a lot to say on that. I don't know if there's enough time here. Boundaries. Boundaries will change your perspective. It'll change your perspective and your empowerment on that. It'll put you back in the driver's seat around that. How do we pay for the 2-hour workshop and then apply them? Okay. How do you pay for the 2-hour workshop? So you pay for the 2-hour workshop, and then when you take the workshop, I give you a coupon code that you can use for the longer workshop that'll take $159 off the longer 4-week course. In that 4-week course, I told you about the other things we do. We talk about the who, what, when, where, and why, having boundaries with people like your therapist, his therapist, your pastor, your kids, his family, other people that are problematic, that are a threats to the relationship comes first. Prepare how you're going to respond to your need for self-care if a boundary rupture happens, how to deal with pushback. And then in addition to the 4 weeks of coaching with me, we give you 4 weeks of something called momentum. It's a post support group where because when you spend 4 weeks doing this work with other women and seeing the empowerment and starting to feel the change, you don't want it to end. Okay. You have started to build up some momentum in your empowerment, in your voice, in your authority, in taking back clarity, taking back peace, and you don't want it to end. And so we give you another 4 weeks of our momentum group, which is only open to graduates of my boundaries course. And so we've had some people in there who've been members quite a few years, and they're still members. And this tribe is a lovely, beautiful tribe of women who are betrayed spouses in recovery, who have taken my course, who also are in the growth mindset and want to maintain that empowerment and that authority. And you get to try it for 4 weeks for free. And if you like it, you get to subscribe on a monthly basis and come and hang out with us twice a week. Okay. Okay. So I think I've answered everything there. Okay. What time is it? It is 8:26. Let me see what's going. We still have 60 people here. Okay. My gosh, I am just so grateful to you all that you just wanted to come hear me talk. That means a lot to me. That helps my self-worth after betrayal, right? That 60 people want to hear from me. I really do. I love what I do. If you would have said to me 8-9 years ago, Pam, you're going to go through this really horrible relationship experience with the person you love most in the world, and you have dedicated all of your life to, all of your finance, all of your parenting, all of your belongings, all of your assets. You're going to go through this horrible experience, and you're going to learn about the psychology of addiction, and you're going to learn about the neurobiological science of connecting to other people, and what happens in the nervous system, what happens in the brain, and what safety looks like, and what grieving is. I would have said hard pass. Me, I don't think I can do it. Yeah, you're nuts. I don't think this is something I can do. And if you knew me back then, you wouldn't even recognize me. I'm a very different person now. But I am so grateful for the boundaries work, it has transformed my life in a way beyond my relationship. And you'll learn this too when you start really, really loving your boundaries, and seeing the power that they can give you. And actually, sometimes what happens is you're teaching other people how to make different choices around about you, about your needs for peace, about your needs for things that you value because I value, right? And you'll find that other people, most people will adjust. They will adjust to your boundaries. Um, Sometimes they won't. I'm not going to lie. But you need to know one way or another. You need to know if other people are willing to honor your very human rights for some basic things: honesty, fidelity, even in friendship, right? Okay, let me see. So I'm going to go to the chat now. Hi, Mary. Mary, I'm so glad to see you here. Jennifer, Mary. Oh, Jennifer. Oh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. That makes your journey with this betrayal compounded. Absolutely. Oh, Lisa, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. I love hanging out with people in recovery because it's growth mindset. It's people who want to grow, people who want to do better, people who want to learn more about themselves, who want to get more out of life. Um, I have had such a great experience in doing coaching women. And now that I'm doing work in Choose Connection Academy, seeing lives change, seeing relationships healed, seeing men, seeing men grow and show remorse and grieve and grieve. I get to show up in some of these meetings where these men are owning everything and showing and displaying their grief. I mean, they're in tears, sitting next to their wife, saying, I can't believe when I think about what I've done to my wife, just not even the acting out, just the Darvo and the gaslighting and blaming her and just owning this stuff. It is truly sacred, sacred work. So I know you all have lives. You know where to get me if you have questions. You know you're all going to get an email from me with some of these links to these resources for showing up here. That discount is available till December 15th. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Love you too. Yeah, you guys, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you for showing up here. I want to let you all go back to the things you love. Please go take care of yourselves. Put yourself first, okay? Without apology, without guilt. I know we don't do that in our society, but I'm here to help us change that dynamic. Okay. Please do consider spending some time with me. And I also have a 7-day guarantee, get your money back on the larger course. Okay. That's how much I believe in it. So you'll get links to all this, and you know how to find me if you still have questions. Okay. Will I be emailing a recording? Probably. Probably. The technical part is hard, so you got to give me some time because I'm one person. I'm only one woman. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I'm checking my messages here. Okay. Okay. All right, folks. I love you all. Just if you take one thing away from me tonight, just take this away. Other people's behavior has no meaning for who you are or your worth or your value. It only has meaning and data about their relationship with themselves. Okay? All right. Take care. Love you all. Bye-bye. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Hi, YouTube.